I am the circle and you are healing me. I am the circle and you are healing me. United people, we are one. United people, we are one. I am the circle and you are healing me. I am the circle and you are healing me. United people, we are one. United people, we are one. Hello, fellow seekers. Welcome back to the Law of One Spiritual Advice podcast. My name is Elle, and I return to sing you some songs. No, I'm just joking. I wanted to talk today about spontaneity and being spontaneous and repression and projection and anxiety and all of these types of things. And how I do that is, well, part of this is being spontaneous and me wanting to be spontaneous, trying to think of a logical way to put this podcast together to make the most sense so that your logical self can understand it and blah, 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 blah. Well, that I'm overthinking it sometimes. And so I need to balance my service and I need to be, interested and engaged and feeling the fire in my heart so that I want to actually speak to you guys, right? And I want to have that passion come across to you. And how do I do that? Well, by keeping things fresh. And how do I do that? Well, by being spontaneous. So I thought I would start with a little tuning song. I've maybe sung you this once before in a previous podcast about tuning. It's just a nice way to get into the energy of this, of what I'm trying to get across. It's just a good way to tune ourselves for this podcast and, for me to make this podcast and obviously to get you to listen to it, to get into that space that I'm trying to get across. So with that, I would like to talk about repression and projection and how being spontaneous with your reactions to things and being honest with yourself, how these types of things are all related. And that's also where the magic is. The magic is in your spontaneous responses to things. And why would that be, briefly before we get into it? Well, you, my friend, are a piece of infinity. You are not like anyone else. And so there is no set thing that I can tell you as to how you should react to something. You should react to something how you think you should react to something. And how you think you should react to something is based very much so on your emotions and sort of your trigger response to anything, whether it be good or bad or whatever it is. So as you respond to things naturally and honestly and spontaneously, here's the important part, you have to inspect yourself. You have to sort of see yourself outside of yourself as an observer so that you can gauge your reactions, see if they're fair. Are they pointed in the direction of love and compassion and service, or are they just things that you're being petty and shallow about? And that's okay, because we all are in certain respects. And is it just the ego self, trying to express itself so that something can be better known to you, so that you can know something about yourself? And in other words, you may be responding negatively to any kind of catalyst in your life because of something that's happened to you previously that you were unable to accept and forgive, either with yourself or with someone else. And so when that sort of same flavor of catalyst comes your way, instead of you working with what would be optimal, which is acceptance and love and understanding, you instead try to control that thing because you haven't quite accepted and loved and forgiven it in your own life. And then you project outwards into the outside world by trying to control these things, and basically you're just projecting your insecurities and your non-acceptance and your non-forgiveness onto the outside world. So does that mean that you stop trying to serve the outside world? No, that's not what that means. It just means that you want to try to get yourself to an honest and pure intention place within yourself. But it can also take time, right? Like, we're all sort of children in a way, and in the in our maturity levels in our minds. And so we have to work with that. We also, being spontaneous and working with control versus acceptance is that we don't necessarily want to control ourselves into discipline. We want to accept ourselves and love and forgive and take accountability into discipline. So there's a fine line between the two. And I have, a quote lined up, which is sort of relevant to this. So I shall read it to you. So this is going to be from the Law of One material, session 42.9. You can get links to it from my website, theoneinfinitecreator.com. And, we have links to the LL Research material, who provides us all of this for free. And we thank them very much. So this is going to be session 42.9. The questioner asks Ra, they say, what is the difference in terms of energy center activation between a person who represses emotionally charged responses to emotionally charged situations and the person who is balanced and therefore truly unswayed by emotionally charged situations? Ra answers, I am Ra. This query contains an incorrect assumption. To the truly balanced entity, no situation would be emotionally charged. With this understood, we may say the following. The repression of emotions depolarizes the entity insofar as it then chooses not to use the catalytic action of the space-time present in a spontaneous manner, thus dimming the energy centers. There is, however, some polarization towards the positive if the cause of this repression is consideration for other cells. The entity which has worked long enough with the catalyst to be able to feel the catalyst but not find it necessary to express reactions is not yet balanced but suffers no depolarization due to the transparency of its experiential continuum. Thus, the gradual increase in the ability to observe one's reactions and to know the self will bring the self ever closer to a true balance. Patience is requested and suggested, for the catalyst is intense upon your plane, and its use must be appreciated over a period of consistent learned teaching. End of quote. All right, so there was a lot said in there, but I suppose I'll just pull out a few things by sort of just rereading it, and I'll rephrase some of it in my own words. So they state here, to the truly balanced entity, no situation would be emotionally charged. So why is that? Well, the truly balanced entity doesn't really see much of a difference in things. It sees everything as the creator and everything as some sort of distortion of love. So elsewhere in the material, it's sort of stated that, to the perfect balanced entity, they would the perfect reaction is love for everything. So are you able to react in love to everything? Well, probably not. You might think you can, but be honest with yourself, right? You can't. So that's basically what you need to determine. It's where am I not capable of loving? Those are the types of things that are going to come up in my life and that are going to trigger me, and that I'm going to sort of, if I'm not working with acceptance and I'm still trying to repress and control these types of things, then I'm going to be projecting that onto the world. And I'm going to be doing that with an emotionally charged sense of feeling with the thing. So anyways, we're going to continue on. With this understood, we may say the following. The repression of emotions depolarize the entity insofar as it then chooses to not use the catalytic action of space-time present in a spontaneous manner, thus dimming the energy centers. So what they're saying here, in my opinion, is that if you are not reacting in a spontaneous manner, in other words, whenever someone is coming to you, you're trying to constantly gauge the perfect reaction of I need to control how this other person thinks about me, therefore I need to control myself and sort of come off in certain ways so that they see me as cool or powerful or important or whatever it is that your ego wishes to express, right? So you should react honestly and spontaneously. And if you're not, then you're dimming the energy centers, which would mean that you're sort of repressing things. And so as you're dimming energy centers and repressing, to me, that sounds like you're moving from, maybe a fully balanced chakra system and open and activated, where you start closing them down from the top and coming down and getting kind of stuck in the lower energy centers, which is what they're saying here is, depolarizes the entity, which also means that you're sort of going towards the negative. You're trying to control. If you're on the service to others path, you work with acceptance. The service to self path works with control, and that is a massive part of this. Whenever you get confused as to why would it be depolarizing? Well, because as you are a service to others being and you are working with control instead of acceptance, you're depolarizing yourself. And I know that sounds shady in that, like, well, do I just spontaneously react to everything and be like just completely off the handle? Well, I mean, it says here that you can repress your emotions and your spontaneous reactions, and it will dim the energy centers a bit. However, you still actually are going to polarize slightly towards the positive, just maybe not as much, if you repressed it in consideration of like the feelings of the other self, or the like, you don't want to infringe on the free will of the other. Like, maybe they live in a deep, deep ignorance and they really appreciate that ignorance and they don't want you messing with their reality. And so you sort of respect their free will and you maybe repress your reaction from them because, maybe they seem to have their own way of, their own path of getting home, and it maybe doesn't include you necessarily. So that's how I would see that. So anyways, they continue on, if the consideration is for other selves, then they say the entity which has worked long enough with the catalyst to be able to feel the catalyst but not find it necessary to express reactions is not yet balanced but suffers no depolarization due to the transparency of its experiential continuum. So I consider that sentence to basically say that, there's some entities who work with catalyst long enough, they're able to see the catalyst and the lessons and why the catalyst is coming their way and why they express things the way they do, but they may find it not necessary to express the reaction because at least they're seeing themselves in an honest light, I suppose, right? They're not like tricking themselves. Maybe they're just sort of like, they're just trying to feel out this whole thing while they get a sense for how they want to then step back into the matrix and start being spontaneously reacting. But, for the time being, it's like, it's okay to step back and just be a constant observer of things and feel out how you feel about all these types of catalysts and lessons and experiences coming your way. And then they sort of finish here like, thus the gradual increase in the ability to observe one's reactions and to know the self will bring the self ever closer to a true balance. Patience is requested and suggested, for the catalyst is intense upon your plane and should be appreciated over a period of consistent learned teaching. So to me, this is actually really important. You may have only thought of it as a small thing, but I think it's really the most important, is that patience for the self, patience for other selves. The more you can be patient with yourself, funny enough, the more you will find it easier to be patient with others. Oh, wouldn't you know how that works? So, so please be patient with yourself. We are stubborn creatures. I sort of am. I assume you sort of are too. And if you're not, well, you're probably being stubborn, right? So thanks for proving my point. But yeah, we're stubborn creatures, and you can't control yourselves into being a perfect, disciplined, balanced entity. You are human, and you sort of have your bellicose things that you do, and to me, that's sort of okay, right? Like, you're only going to get there through experiencing those things and realizing that those things do not serve you and letting them fall away. Letting them fall away naturally, right? Like, hey, you know what? I can just think of an example of me being, a bit younger. I, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to see this, started to experiment like with drinking at a fairly young age. I'm not sure how young. Probably shouldn't even say, but at that point, right? It's sort of like, what I noticed was that then later on, when I was in like later high school and about to graduate, because I had already sort of gone through experimenting with that, it wasn't like I needed to control myself into stopping drinking. It just fell away. I was like, oh, I don't need this. This is elementary. It just doesn't serve my life. It doesn't feel good, etc., etc. It just fell away. I just didn't need it anymore. Right? So did I need to like be real hard on myself? Like, sure, if I was later in life and or whatever, got into like an addictive sort of personality, of course we're going to need to do some things to get ourselves out of there, that may require a bit of control. But for the most part, right, as you learn to just accept yourself and really be honest with yourself and not try to trick yourself and project onto the world, you start to see the honest feedback in your life, and you can sort of not trick yourself into living in an in ignorance where, you're thinking that you're doing well when you're really not. It's like you're really just being honest with yourself. You can start to distinguish and differentiate the things in your life which do not serve, which then just makes it easier for them to fall away as you replace them with other things that are, more in line with your resonance and your service and your lifestyle, right? So I just wanted to read one more quote here, session 4119, which more just reinforces what I just said. They state, the key to balance may then be seen in the unstudied, spontaneous, and honest response of entities toward experiences, thus using experience to the utmost, then applying the balancing exercises and achieving the proper attitude for the most purified spectrum of energy center manifestation in violet ray. Fancy way of saying that as the key to balance may then be seen in the unstudied, spontaneous, and honest responses of entities towards experiences. Basically applying the balancing exercises and achieving, as they say, the proper attitude for purified spectrum energy center. What they mean is just basically finding where each catalyst and emotion and spontaneous reaction fits within your chakra system, which is sort of like an emotional system: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Red, survival; orange, personal; yellow, social, societal; green, the heart chakra, universal love, compassion, understanding; blue, the throat chakra, wisdom, expressing love, manifesting things; the indigo chakra, the one of silence, of infinity, of unity, of oneness; and then of course the violet ray, which is just the overall readout of the previous chakras, which is why they say the most purified spectrum of energy center manifestation in violet ray. It just means your most balanced state that you are capable of achieving at this point in your life. Woo! That was a lot of fun reading for you. So I want to keep it a little spontaneous here at the end and reward you if you have, made it this far into the podcast. I can always see the stats on the podcast, and you can tell, maybe 50% of people only will make it this far. So if you're listening constantly and consistently, I appreciate it. In fact, I kind of need to get my channel to 4,000 watch hours over a full year in order to consider possibly monetizing it. So, it actually does matter that people watch the entire thing, because I am trying to, push for a goal of 4,000. I don't do this for money, right? But I need to give myself some basic level of abundance. Okay, so obviously don't hate me for it, but it is what it is. So, okay, I want to keep it spontaneous. So what did I want to go with here? All right, yeah, you know what? I want to talk more about this whole repression chakra thing. So if you're not acting spontaneously, you're probably going to be repressing yourself and repressing your reactions. And so in that, you're depolarizing yourself, basically, is what I've just laid out here as the base work for you. So when you repress things, to me, that means you're not working with acceptance, right? They talk about how you're dimming the energy centers. To me, you work from the energy centers moving up, from the bottom moving up. So let's say that you are already opened up to the heart. Okay, you're opened up to the heart chakra. The heart chakra works with acceptance, love and understanding and acceptance. So if you are in the heart, you're likely not going to be doing any repressing, because you're going to be accepting things and loving them and trying to understand them, and not trying to force them into a place which maybe they don't fit. So, as you're trying to control yourself, you're kind of shutting down the heart. And now you're stepping into your bottom three chakras. And what are those, right? The societal and the personal and the survival. And so what are you going to end up doing? Well, in an attempt to open and balance these bottom chakras now, you're going to be sort of putting more energy there, right? Before, the energy was coming up into the heart. Now you kind of stopped it from going to the heart, and you pushed it back down into the bottom three, where now they're basically blocked from acceptance. And what is left there? Well, I would assume if you're not working with acceptance, you're doing some form of control, which is what the service to self people do. They don't use the heart chakra. They just do maximum use of the bottom three chakras of their personal survival and their, societal self. And through that, they polarize towards the negative by enslaving and controlling others, and controlling their free will. So there we go. So as you repress yourself, you're going down into the bottom chakras. To me, if you're not accepting things, then all you're left to do is just to project onto the world. So is projection a bad thing? Well, yeah, I mean, it has bad connotations, but remember how I said, this is a long process. So if you're going to be spontaneously reacting, sometimes you can't help but to project. It's just the nature of where you're at in your life. And you haven't made it into the heart, and you can't force yourself into the heart, so you're going to have to project, I suppose, right? And what's that going to do? It's probably going to lead to more distortion and more issues, but that's going to lead to some sort of revelation. The projection, you can project onto the world so hard until somebody or something or the world will hold up a mirror in front of your damn face, and you're going to go, oh shoot, that's actually all me. Oops, my bad. I need to work on accepting and loving others better instead of being a rude a rude controller, psychopath, sociopath, something like this, okay? So then I want to talk about how this is somewhat linked with anxiety and being spontaneous, right? So if you are anxious about how others are seeing you, how they're going to react, how they're going to think of you in some group or whatever, right? Like that's a common thing these days. People like to just, instead of listening to you, just say, oh, you're part of some group, aren't you? There's no reason to even speak to you. So, this is a common thing where anxiety is going to be high if you are also not working with reacting spontaneously. So if I'm not reacting spontaneously, then to me that means that I'm like worried about what other people are thinking about me, and that's not really a good thing, right? Like I don't really care what anyone thinks about me, except to what degree it matters that it may improve my service towards them. So did that sound counterintuitive or paradoxical what I said? Yes, it did, because so many people want to project onto you, and they're not really working with love and acceptance and understanding. And so you really need to be confident in yourself and knowing that it's okay to react spontaneously and it's okay to make mistakes, because you seek to serve, and you know that if you make a mistake, you will attempt to, repair it and fix it and never make that same mistake again. So if you are understanding the magic of being spontaneous, it to me can allow you to relax the anxiety. I'm actually a fairly anxious person, and I had a sort of an astrological chart reading from this lady who I was feeling she was kind of pure enough that I could do that with her, and she pointed out to me that I need to work with my anxiety by essentially releasing it to a higher power, which is to say that, which I interpreted as, well, yeah, you're right. Like that's kind of what I'm already trying to do in some situations, which is just to step back and say, all is well. I can't control this situation. Like, say I have to go somewhere and do some plans with a social group or whatever. I have a bit of social anxiety in that way. So, what goes through my head, because I think a lot, okay, is that, well, what are these people going to think about me? Oh, are they going to hate me? Like, what if I react in this way and this and that and blah, 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 which obviously is anxiety. Like that's what it is. You're just overthinking something that you can't control. You don't really have any control over. So what do? Well, I like to go into it with a sense that, the creator has this in their hands. Like it's not up to me to control every moment. It's really just up to me to try to accept and love in the moment and be love if I can be. So does that require me to always be thinking ahead and planning and plotting and trying to control? No. I mean, often some of the best, most magical things come out of you in a spontaneous manner. Just a random hug or a random thing of charity that just, you freely want to just give away. It's not like you sit there and plot and try to control things. So I guess my point is that as I'm able to let go of my wanting to control the moment, it does help me with my anxiety, and I'm able to just let go and say, the creator has this, let thy will be done through me. If I see an opportunity to serve, let's take it. What more can be done? And, I guess with that too is the reminder that you are only ever given as much as you are capable of handling. So if you're ever thinking I'm quite overwhelmed in a situation, well, you may be, but you and your higher self have put yourself in this situation, and there's something there that you can learn from it. So whatever it is, you, my friend, are equipped to handle it. You are all good, all is well. The creator and you are the creator as well. You guys have this, attempt to do the creator's will as you see it, which is just to be that, loving, compassionate hand that you think the creator is, right? The creator has a bias towards kindness, they say. Well, maybe we should try to have a bias towards kindness as well. So, my friends, this sort of wraps up the art of service. It is a little bit scatterbrained, but I hope that, through the spontaneousness, and if you're able to listen to the entire thing, you're able to put some of these little puzzle pieces together. It's really hard to describe to somebody the art of service because it's such a personal thing. It's such a I don't know your intentions, right? I don't know you per se. I can't tell you exactly based on your life and your experience what the proper way to react to things is. All I can say is that the proper way to react is a way which is honest, that comes from your honest, personal, sort of emotional responses. And as long as you are fair and honest with those responses and you are attempting your best not to project them onto other people and instead using them to see what they can teach you about yourself, can teach you about where you may have distortions and blockages, if you do it in that manner and only sort of use your viewing distortions in others as a means to help them and not a means to necessarily judge them, then I think that you are on the right path. And that's really all I could suggest. So if you guys like listening to the podcast, please give it a like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment, let me know what you think. If you find value in what I do, you can join my Patreon at theoneinfinitecreator.com. Just scroll down to the support section. I got a Patreon there, maybe one-time PayPal if you just want to do a one-timer. I appreciate any and everything. I do work a separate job, but my sort of goal is I would like to step into this online role of just giving spiritual advice and sharing myself with others. But I have to be honest, and to do that I just need some type of sustenance and help and assistance. So my friends, if you appreciate this service, which is freely given, I would appreciate if you freely give to me. Nothing is expected, of course. That's the reason of it being free service. You have this no matter what. And, the people who do join my Patreon, they don't get anything extra, right? Other than maybe the feeling that they get to be helping some soul out there, spread this type of material out to the many people that happen to have followed the Instagram and the other types of channels that I've created. So I just really appreciate that this is all on a freely give, freely receive basis. I can't explain to you how important that is to me. It shows me that you value my service freely, and so I want to just continue to give you the best that I can give you in a weekly, consistent basis, and even daily basis on the Law of One page on Instagram. So you guys, thank you so much for listening. I love you very much, and take care. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week.